How did a once introverted programmer go from coding in a cubicle to leading an iconic American brand? Well, that's exactly what Omaha Steaks CEO Nate Rempe did. And along with CEO Forum Group founder Robert Reiss, they're your inside source for magical hacks that will transform the way you command a room, command your career, and maybe even command a company. Get ready. This is Brain of Command.
Robert Reiss here. Today's leadership hack is one of my favorites, Nate. This is intentional déjà vu. That's really how to own the room within the first 15 seconds.
That's right, Robert. That treacherous 15. It's when the threat response kicks in, the cortisol spikes and your heart rate jumps, and that rational bandwidth to control the situation kind of plummets. Today, we're going to take you through a process to help you to control that first 15 seconds so you can own the room and be successful in delivering your story.
And we have for our first guest, could be the single best person I could think of in the whole world, because that is Joe Hart, who is the CEO globally of Dale Carnegie Training. So give a snapshot of what Dale Carnegie Training is today.
Well, first, Robert, thank you. It's great to see you. And Nate, thanks for having me on the show. So Dale Carnegie, we're a global leadership training company. We're all about development of people. We are actually 113 years old. Nate, I know you're also the CEO of a long-standing 100-plus-year-old company, and 113 years old this year. We have 200 operations in 86 countries, so truly a global business all over the world. And we're really about bringing out the best in people, work with companies of all sizes around the world.
Joe, I wonder how many 100-year-old businesses have got on a single podcast together before. It's got to be next to never, right? I mean, wow.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So Nate, could you start us off, tee up? It's the first time I had heard the words intentional déjà vu. So explain to people, because you developed this, what those words really mean. And then Joe's going to comment and tell us how we use this.
Well, I think everybody realizes what the term déjà vu means. It's that feeling like you've been there before, like what you're experiencing already happened. And the word intentional intends to create the feeling that you can actually intentionally use this feeling of déjà vu to create comfort and to guide yourself in a moment that would otherwise be a very anxious, maybe scary moment for many people, where you're getting up in front of a group of individuals. It doesn't need to be a lot, could be a small room, could be a large presentation, but to replay that moment in your head over and over, to create that feeling of when you're on that stage, when you're in that room and presenting the information or telling the story, that you've been there before, so that you can control that threat response, that cortisol spike, and be cool, calm, and collected, so that you can set pacing and instill confidence and intrigue in your audience. Because as I imagine Joe will tell you here in a minute, that first 7 to 15 seconds when a room or an audience is watching someone speak or present, they already form an opinion of intrigue and how much they're going to listen and pay attention. So that first 15 seconds is so critical.
So Joe, Dale Carnegie probably has more experience than anyone in the world in terms of training people for speeches. What is that secret, those first couple of seconds, your first 15 seconds? What do you do?
Well, before I answer that, Robert, let me just go back to that. I love this intentional déjà vu concept that Nate has. And in fact, I think it comes down to so much of what Dale Carnegie taught. And the one thing I didn't say when you asked about this is many people think about Dale Carnegie as public speaking, right? So how Dale Carnegie wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, probably the best known person or one of the best known people in history in terms of, really trying to help people bring out the best of it. They give powerful speeches. And what I appreciate about what Nate says with this intentional déjà vu is that Dale Carnegie's whole view was, that we should be giving talks, and those first 15 seconds come down to, am I giving a talk on something I've earned the right to talk about through my preparation? And we could talk about reserve power, which is a concept he talked about, which I think relates to this concept. Am I eager to share this because I want to give something to the audience. I see it as a gift. And then the third thing was, am I excited about the topic? Is it something really that resonates to me? Because so much of that is just, we want it to be that authentic person. So that those first 10 to 15 seconds, if we've done everything right leading up to being there, it's going to be a lot easier. So, but to your specific question, Robert, you want to start a talk. Here's how not to start the talk. With just well, it's good to be with you all today.
Yeah.
You want to start with either a startling statement or a story or a statistic or something that just captures the audience, because you're absolutely right. Those first 5, 10, 15 seconds, absolutely critical. So if you go into that winging it, thinking, well, I'll just wait and see how it goes without any preparation, boy, everyone's going to know in those first 15 seconds what the rest of the talk's going to be like.
Right. I would even say that, the old index card even doesn't do it right. Because you can be, really passionate. You could be a subject matter expert, and you could, be energized to tell the story you want to tell. And you walk up there and those first 15 seconds can just shut it all down. It's interesting how the biology works. It's just this fear aspect that changes your mindset when you walk out on the stage or you walk in front of the room and you just see all these people looking at you. You really want to try to own that moment so that you can bridge to where that passion and energy really happens. And I think today what we want to teach our audience is, what are some actionable things they can do? And so intentional deja vu, as it's defined, really says, create that movie in your head and play those first 15 seconds. What are you going to say? What's the room look like? What are you wearing? How is the audience reacting to what you're saying? And then make a few tweaks. Play it again. Tweak it. Play it again. Play it again. Create that deja vu moment. So when you walk out there, when you're in the room, you almost don't even need to think, because the deja vu kicks in and you're there and you've been there and it just happens and you bridge to the passion and you're off and running, with an engaged audience.
Yeah, it's 100% right. And especially, the single most important emotion I think that we want to feel when we are going up on stage is confidence, right? And if I'm confident, everything's going to go well. If I'm insecure, if I'm worrying and so forth, but that first 15 seconds, if I want to be confident, it really does come down to preparation. And that's the intentional deja vu. It's like, have I really thought about how I'm going to start that? Have I envisioned looking at the audience? Have I envisioned how I'm using my hands and where I'm looking and the tone of my voice and all those kinds of things? The one caveat to this, I think, that is really important is sometimes this is one of the biggest mistakes that we can all make in a talk, is we'll write the talk, we'll memorize the talk word for word, and then we stand up in front of an audience and we try to recite it. And there's so many examples of people who've done that and then just gone blank.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like the death of the speech in the first 15 seconds. So the idea that you're saying about rehearsing it and knowing what we're going to say and how we want to see it, but also giving ourselves some grace. It may not come out exactly as we thought, and that's okay, because no one knew exactly what we're going to say before we got up there, right? So we just need to keep on going with that confidence and poise.
Let's go into a real case study here, Joe. So not everything goes as planned. Have you ever been in a situation, or have you heard of anyone where there was just a wrinkle, some mistake happened right before the speech?
I mean, it's happened to me many times. I think it's probably happened. Anyone who's given professional speeches or been out, it definitely happens. But I can share one story with you, Robert and Nate, which was, I was excited about this talk because it was the first talk I was giving after COVID, right? So we'd gone through COVID. No one had been in person. I'm going to a statewide conference. There's going to be 1,000 people in the room. I show up the day before to work with the organizers to make sure everything's just right. I want my lavalier microphone because I want to use my hands. I tell them I definitely don't want a handheld mic, making sure there's a monitor up in front of it. And so everything was perfect. And then the next morning, the morning of the speech, they say, "Please welcome to the stage the president and CEO of Dale Carnegie, Joe Hart." And people start to clap, and I run up, and I'm behind. Now behind stage there's a curtain, a floor to ceiling curtain, and I literally just my foot hit the step, and I went flat on my arms
Oh,
and my
man.
knees, and a big thud. And I'm thinking to myself, no one probably saw that, but they definitely heard it. And then when I got back up on stage, and this goes to even, I think, the value of intentional deja vu. It's like I was prepared. I was able to collect myself and think, all right, let's keep on going. The mic didn't work, right? So then I start talking, and people, we can't hear you.
Right.
And then they come out to try to fix the mic. And then ultimately it's like, here's a handheld mic. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But the point is, I think we have to be flexible in the moment. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't control all of our environment. So, and the rest of the talk went fine. But again, it goes to the preparation, to the visualization, to being able to be adaptable in the moment. And thankfully, it went fine.
I think the really cool thing too is all that happened in the first 15 seconds of your talk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, intentional deja vu can include and should include all these things that might happen. The AV issues, which, gosh, who doesn't have those every now and then? You trip up the stairs, or something happens there, because that kind of adds to the audience experience. Your level of confidence in that moment is to be adaptable. Like, stuff happens, right? And it happens to everybody every now and then. And if you roll with the punches and you can deal with that and sort of get into the topic, it just even looks better almost, that you dealt with it and you can just still be an engaging speaker, engaging person. So, and I do want to say that, when you get to the point in your career where you're talking to large audiences, I mean, I think that this is, very relatable, very relevant, but I don't think it's limited to a large population of people watching you. I mean, I think it's all relative, right? If you're someone that doesn't do public speaking, but you have to get up in front of a board of directors or a group of your peers, or a group of friends or colleagues of any sort. Maybe you're on a board of directors, or you work on a advisory board or something of that nature. I mean, anytime you have to be up there and one or more eyes are on you, all of the principles, all the concepts, they're still so relevant and applicable. It doesn't require this large audience. I'm sure you would agree.
I would 100%. I mean, and sometimes, as you said, it's a small audience and a small room, or it could be a big audience, a big room, or something in between. At the end of the day, I mean, ultimately it comes down to the audience. And this is something Dale Carnegie talks about a lot. I mean, when we go to give a talk, who are we often thinking about? We're often thinking about ourselves. How am I going to look? What am I going to say? And all these things. And his whole point was, don't worry. I mean, you got to be aware of yourself, but think about the audience. Think about what you want to give the audience. Think about what you're trying to, what are I often think before a talk, what are the three things that I want the audience to feel after this? Do I want them to feel confident? Do I want them to feel inspired? Do I want them to feel motivated? Whatever it is, what do I want them to say? So this again goes to your idea of preparation, which is you actually think about, at the end of the talk, if it's a board meeting, if it's a internal meeting, if it's a big speech, what do I want people to come to say to me after that talk? Boy, I had no idea. I really learned a lot. That was whatever it is.
Yeah, that's great.
But for us to get to that level of intentional preparation, so that we're thinking about, what would a great speech look like? What would a great result look like? I mean, those are the kinds of things that when we do that, we make that deja vu part of it a lot more likely to happen.
We're about to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to ask, how do you actually coach the people to do that? And then we're going to ask Nate, because here's a technology guy, and he might have some special advice for technology people who have to speak. Back in a few. Robert Reiss here. I hope you're enjoying the show. We'll get back in just a moment, but right now, I actually want to tell you about my recent vacation to Cape Cod. So, family trip takes a lot of planning, but one thing we never had to worry about was our dinner plans, our secret Omaha steaks. We brought up several variety packs with chicken, those big deli-style franks, my favorite sirloin burgers, and of course, Pop-Up's favorite, the steaks. perfect after spending a day on the beach. Omaha steaks' flavor and variety are simply unmatched, and everyone got exactly what they wanted. So here's my gift to you. First, you could get 50% off your order when you go to omahasteaks.com. But for our loyal listeners, you will take an extra $45 off with code CEO at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, and code that you could remember, CEO, to make your summer sizzle. Hi, it's Robert Reiss, and we are here today with Joe Hart. And so I want to start off, Joe. So Dale Carnegie Training, and I will say, and I've been involved with it, loved it. It's an amazing program. My grandfather took the Dale Carnegie course with Dale Carnegie himself, but really, public speaking is just one little component. It's more about leadership, human relations, coaching. So let's say if you're listening in, you're a CEO, and we have a couple of 100,000 CEOs listening in right now, and you have to coach one of your leaders to relabel adrenaline into genuine excitement. How do you go about coaching that person?
Well, when you say adrenaline, I'm assuming part of what you mean is just that nervousness that you can feel, that the jitters that we can feel before we go out on stage. And so again, I think it's natural. Probably all of us are going to have that to some degree. And the question is, how do we channel it? And the single biggest piece of advice that I ever received around this was from a Dale Carnegie trainer, one of the best we have in the world. His name is Clark Merrill. And he's the one who said to me, if you're nervous, who are you thinking about? The tendency we often have is to think in our minds about all the things that can go wrong and how are we going to look? And I don't want to look foolish and so forth. But when we do start to think about the audience, going back to the 3 E's, right? I've earned the right. I have prepared. So if I'm coaching someone, say I've got one of my team members is going to give a talk. Number one, have they earned the right to give the talk? Are they prepared? Have they done the work? And, there's this whole idea of reserve power, which is how much work I put into a speech, not memorizing, but preparation. The second step of that is, are you excited about this topic? Are you excited about having this conversation? And if you are, kind of let that take hold. And then the third part of it is, are you eager to share it? And so when we start to take our attention off of ourselves, off of the worry about the different things that can happen, and I think about Robert's my audience. I want to give this point, this insight, this story, whatever it is. What naturally happens is you start to get a little bit more relaxed. And frankly, if you can get over the first 30 to 60 seconds, a lot of those jitters can then really go away. If you've done the prep and you've done these other things, then you can feel right at home on stage.
Joe, I've had, many, many occasions where I've gone up on stage and I've practiced my own idea of intentional deja vu. And for me, it's sort of like this idea of the cognitive load I have in my head, preparing for the speech or the talk. Like if I try to put too much into my brain about, memorizing the speech, to controlling the entire scenario, it almost becomes manufactured or mechanical. And so I've had a lot of success with just kind of like lighting that 15-second fuse and then, kind of letting the firework take off and organically creating that energy. And you're spot on. It's like, if you're passionate about it, if you're qualified to talk on it, you want to get other people excited about it. I mean, those are the things, that's the recipe for success if you can get that fuse lit and kind of let the firework take off.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's at the end of the day, and you think about the audience wants to connect with us. They want us to know that we're real, that we're authentic. And you can over prepare if you're trying to think about exactly what it is you want to say. But I mean, which goes to another point, Nate. We haven't really talked about it yet, but one of the things I would encourage people is you don't need note cards. You probably don't give a speech with note cards. You've got it's just you, and often it's just about knowing where you want to go in the talk, and to kind of just. But if you've done the reserve, that preparation, then you can let the natural you being out. But you're right about that 10 or 15 seconds. If you could really start out strong and really you can look around, and if you feel like you're connecting with people and people are engaged. And of course, we've got to re-engage people multiple times throughout the talk, but that first 15 seconds is absolutely critical. Although I would say too, though, even if let's just say we botch that first 15 seconds, which can happen, it doesn't mean we can't recover, right? We can still recover, but we got to figure out how to re-engage the audience and kind of get back on track. So I agree with you. It's really, really important that first 15 seconds. And it's not fatal if we do flub it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, don't walk off the stage if the first 15 seconds doesn't go as you intend, right? Like you got to be able to adapt. But you said something, Joe, that I thought was spot on, which is this idea of storytelling. Like if you're asking yourself, you're listening to this and you're thinking like, okay, so what do I talk about in the first 15? Like, what do I do? What do I say? There's this idea in the intentional déjà vu concept about a story seed. A lot of times people start it with like, they'll say something like, I'll start with a story, or, let's talk about customer service, as opposed to just going right into the seed. Like I was standing in a meat locker at, 5 below 0, and I had this spreadsheet and a hard hat and, kind of create this visual in the mind. Or, at 6:42 in the morning, I got an email from a customer and who'd been waiting 23 days for a response, kind of setting that stage, creating that visual in the mind of the audience. You want to talk a little bit about, some approaches that you might take around seeding that story in that first 15 seconds?
Yeah, I love what you just said, and it's exactly true. People will often set up the story and versus just getting right into it. So one of the things we teach in Dale Carnegie, and it's a really core part of a Dale Carnegie course, is really a magic formula kind of a talk, which is number one, you go right into the incident, and then within immediately go into there I was, and as you said,
Right.
Standing in the meat locker, I'm freezing, I'm bundled up, and like bring people into that moment, bring it to life, because there's something about the human brain and how we connect to stories. I mean, just think about, we could be going about our day and all of a sudden we start to hear a story. We're like, what's that? And
Yeah.
even more so in a speech. So the more vivid we can make it, the more real we can make, more that we can bring that audience into the story, it's going to really connect. Now, depending on what it is, our 2-minute magic formula talk is you've got an incident, a benefit, and an action. So you might say, because at the end of the day, you got to connect it to the audience. The benefit to you will be if you do this, and then or here's the action you take, and here's the benefit to you. So it's incident, action, benefit. So, but to really model the story, to bring it to life, absolutely critical. Love the meat locker. I want to hear the rest of your story.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you talk about the temperature in the meat locker, what you're wearing, you create that HD picture in the minds of your audience. It's almost like, you wish you could see a little image pop above everyone's head about, what they think this moment looked like. If creating that for them just draws them in that moment, and they just want to hear more, so that's kind of the point.
Tell them what you were thinking. Tell them what I was terrified because of this, or I was excited because of this, but to again, bring people into that story with the emotion and the picture and the color, all the things you're saying.
Great.
And the reason that works is because the muscles in the eyes are 25 times stronger than the muscles in the ears. So when in your first sentence, you paint something, there I was, and I'm wearing this, and this is the timing, and then you go into your hook and say, and this happened. That's how I felt. All of a sudden, everyone is drawn in completely. So now I want to talk about an interesting word, which is command. So first, Nate, you're the mastermind behind Brain of Command. You're going to explain what Brain of Command, which is what this show means. And then Joe, juxtaposition, wrote a worldwide best-selling book called Take Command. And he's going to talk about that, and we're going to see what overlays.
Yeah. So for me, Robert, it's really this idea of, control the controllables. I mean, take control of the things that you can affect that can, ultimately lead to the outcome you're looking for. A lot of the things in life, a lot of the things around us, we're kind of the product of. I mean, we can't control the weather. We can't control the markets. In many cases, we can't control our children, but there are things we can control. And so what Brain of Command intends to do is to equip our audience with leadership hacks to drive their success. And Robert, all the conversations we've had about this, I mean, I think it's really a novel thing to give people tools I mean, I can't tell you, the number of, talks, the number of podcasts, the number of videos I've watched that were very conceptual. But what Brain of Command wants to do is it wants to reach through the radio, reach through the podcast, the computer speakers, or the video, and to hand our audience members actionable things that if they turned around and implemented them in their day-to-day job, that they would advance let me say this, they'd have a better chance to advance their career than if they did none of them at all.
Joe, take command. What's
Yes.
the connection between Brain of Command and Take Command?
Yeah, I think there's a huge connection, not just in the word command. It really is about, what Nate's saying about, like, there's certain things we can impact and control, and there's certain things that we can't. Taking command, as we're using it in the book, is about being intentional. And this is one of the things we teach in our Dale Carnegie course. It's like, I want to lead an intentional life. So often we may go through days or weeks or months and things go on. I say, am I being intentional about the things that I'm doing, or am I just kind of floating along? So taking command in the book is about taking command of our thoughts and our emotions first, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that can create anxiety or worry or stress or aggravation or frustration, but taking command of our thoughts and emotions means that we learn how to manage our emotional state. We've got emotional intelligence so we can be courageous and resilient and confident in those difficult times. So even, I'm going to stand up on stage. I'm going to take command of my thoughts and my emotions so I can be confident. It means taking command of our relationships. A lot of times we can blame other people and say, this person is this, but what's my responsibility? What are the actions I can take to strengthen a relationship? What's the life that we want to live? What's the vision we have for ourselves? And again, all these things we covered in our Dale Carnegie course as well as in the Take Command book.
And I want to ask the final question to Nate. So, Nate, you're a technology person. Not as frequent that the technology expert becomes the CEO and someone who is passionate. And you have this incredible culture at Omaha Steaks. Everyone I meet there has this excitement, this energy, this love. What's the secret in communications for technical people? That you have that same background and you broke through that barrier with tremendous success.
Yeah, I think us technologists, we're sort of predispositioned to not be engaging. I think we tend to, kind of to grow up in this environment where, we're sitting in front of the computer screen, in front of the device, and, we can get it. We can command that for certain. But we're less equipped, and I speak only from myself. I'm sure there are plenty of people listening that are like, well, I'm an engaging technologist and, more power to you. But, if you're one of those people, technology or not, that thinks to yourself, I really need some help to figure out, how I can swing, the statistics in my favor. I literally built 11 tools, 11 hacks to, in effect, Robert, overcome the things in my life that were holding me back. Okay, quote unquote, to overcome the things that were holding me back. And I needed things that, I needed tools and hacks that I could put in practice that didn't require, a multi-page instruction sheet. Things that came a little bit less naturally, but if I had a cue or had a kind of a snazzy title to the hack or something that would remind me of it, that I could put it in practice. And over the last, I don't know, call it 15 years or so, these magic 11 leadership hacks, Robert, have catapulted my career. I mean, they are the reason why I went from cubicle to corner office. And I feel compelled to share them, over the next 11 episodes so I can empower and equip listeners and people across the country that, maybe have a lot to offer their companies, but just need that extra push. Brain of Command will deliver that, and it will deliver in a way that they can literally take it, just that nugget, that intentional deja vu nugget, for example, and put it in practice. And my hope is that down the road, as we take our audience through this journey, that we actually hear about success stories where some of these leadership hacks actually helped people be more successful or be in the moment or get the results that they're looking for. I couldn't be more excited to take the audience over time through our conversations, and it's really great. And gosh, I would love to hear from Joe as well on that.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to hear more about your 11 principles. I think this is, it's interesting that Dale Carnegie has 30 principles for how to win friends and influence people, 30 for how to stop worrying and start living. But, I think what you're talking about are easy things that ultimately we can remember and put in place that can transform our lives. And certainly that's what we've been doing at Dale Carnegie for over 100 years. It sounds like that's what your secret. I can't wait to hear more about your 11 uh, ideas and principles, Nate. But I think all of this comes back to the fact that we all have to be intentional about our careers. We have to be intentional about our futures, about our
For sure.
relationships, and all those kinds of things. They're not going to happen on themselves. They're not going to be the way that we want them unless we are intentional. And we've got principles like the 11 that you have, or Dale Carnegie's principles.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me feel, Joe, like I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
The one thing that I thought was just a really special moment for me that I share with you, I sent these 11 to my dad, who I've just got like the utmost respect for, right? He's just this kind, smart, sort of good leader, just salt of the earth type of guy. And he read through them and called me back. He's like, I wish someone would have told me about these 30 years ago. So, it's kind of like, okay, I mean, that's the point, right? Is to share these things. And I hope we're sharing them in a way that's consumable and fun. It's a dialogue that's, I think, fun to listen to. And I'm just super jazzed to continue it, and very thankful you're able to join me today.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and I'm honored to be your first guest. I mean, it's a remarkable discussion, and really admire the work that you're doing.
Sets a high bar.
Thanks for joining us on Brain of Command. And remember, in the future, when you have a major communications event, a speech coming up, just remember intentional déjà vu.
Think about a time intentional déjà vu could help you command the room with passion and energy. Remember to play the movie in your mind to live that moment repeatedly and build confidence and comfort. Thanks for listening to Brain of Command. Join us next time to see how a simple game of Simon Says can give you a huge communication advantage. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your colleagues that you're hacking your career with Brain of Command.